Digital charter is Trojan horse for censorship. Social media platforms, users must resist out-of-touch bureaucrats. In June 2022, the federal government proposed the Digital Charter Implementation Act to modernize personal data protection and apply new rules for artificial intelligence deployment. Launched in 2018, the Digital Charter was supposed to achieve the noble goals of expanded internet access and more trust online. If someone peels back the feel-good 10 principles and stated justifications, however, he finds a new weapon in the censor's arsenal. Quote, "The platforms are failing their users, and they're failing our citizens. They have to step up in a major way to counter disinformation," unquote. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said when he announced the Charter on May 16, 2018, quote, "If they don't, we will hold them to account, and there will be meaningful financial consequences," unquote. Fines are a way to bend internet firms, along with broader interpretation and enforcement of hate speech legislation. One impetus for the Charter was the Christchurch Call, a pledge between 18 countries, including Canada, and tech giants Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, quote, "to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online," unquote. The signatory governments plan to prohibit content, quote, "in a manner consistent with the rule of law and international human rights law, including freedom of expression," unquote. However, in a more symbolic gesture, the United States declined to join. This is consistent with the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which guarantees free speech, among other rights, as a bedrock of the Republic. Who defines terrorism, extremism? There is no dispute that terrorists weaponize social media to increase their impact, and social media firms have a role to play in stopping such abuse. However, politicians and tech firms can also co-opt legitimate concerns to restrict speech, stifle criticism, and tilt public debates. The application of safety protections is already limiting legitimate discussions deemed too extreme by censors. The debate over gender pronouns, for example, has led to a fine against a peaceful, law-abiding man in British Columbia. Further, subsidies for approved media outlets, not to mention CBC's taxpayer funding, demonstrate how Canadian officials can easily incentivize submissive, regime-oriented journalism. Proponents of the complicated digital charter explicitly identify fake news as one of their chief targets. The Christchurch Call global strategy came in the wake of the New Zealand mass murder in March 2018. The terrorist live-streamed on Facebook, and then supporters quickly re-uploaded the footage to YouTube and other platforms, straining content moderation efforts. Although the Christchurch case was clear, and the platform eliminated the file without state coercion, the threshold for just who is and who is not an extremist is in the eye of the beholder. Access Now, an advocacy group for digital rights, has criticized the Christchurch Call for its lack of precision in defining terrorist and violent extremist content, a concept that can vary between countries and in some cases can be used arbitrarily to harm human rights. There is no shortage of warning examples. In Fiji, a law aimed at online harassment has led to overreach and a chilling climate for discourse. Bangladesh has throttled internet access ahead of elections, while Benin has imposed a nationwide social media blackout. After the latest terrorist attack in Sri Lanka, the government preemptively shut down all social media platforms to stop rumors. Venezuela's Chavista dictatorship routinely blocks streaming websites during opposition protests. As part of an arbitrary and wide-ranging secret inquiry into fake news, the Brazilian Supreme Court has censored a story linking one of its members to a corrupt businessman. In October 2020, the Nicaraguan Congress, loyal to dictator Daniel Ortega, passed the Cybercrime Act. This law punishes with up to 10 years in prison anyone who, quote, reveals government-classified information, unquote, or shares fake news. Russia has criminalized insults against government officials or the state itself and the spreading of lies. We are wrong to believe this happens only in the third world or in authoritarian countries. France has empowered judges to order the removal of any content they deem fake during elections. Germany has enacted a law compelling social media to remove hate speech, And Human Rights Watch has denounced this as unaccountable, overbroad censorship that should be promptly reversed. The United Kingdom wants to hold websites liable for harmful content posted by users, a proposal similar to Australia's move to jail social media executives. The New Zealand government has criminalised the mere possession of the Christchurch terrorists' manifesto and has bullied the press to limit its coverage of the massacre trial. During the COVID-19 virus's spread, the Canadian government contemplated issuing a law to counter fake news on issues related to the virus. A public statement by the Canadian government read, quote, "Now, more than ever, online services must be held responsible for addressing harmful content on their platforms and creating a safe online space that protects all Canadians," unquote. These laws and regulations need not be applied extensively to chill speech online and foster a culture of self-censorship. As human rights activist Yulia Gorbunova has noted, quote, "Authorities don't really need to control millions of users. All they need to do is have a handful of criminal extremism cases to instill fear," unquote. Widespread self-censorship is the outcome. Across the spectrum, bureaucrats who do not understand the bottom-up nature of the internet are paving the way for censorship across the world. Online communication has become the norm, and those who believe they will never be a target should consider that countless social media accounts have already been blocked or suspended. Heavy-handed moderation affects conservatives, progressives, and people who just threaten the status quo. So attempts to paint this as a one-sided problem are wrong. Further, because there is no precise definition of extremism, social media censors continue to err on the side of what is less likely to get them into trouble with authorities. Companies face little choice if they're to remain in business, as demonstrated by Google when it got into bed with the brutal Chinese regime. When all they have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, both for state censors and centralized social media moderators. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has documented, quote, "the vast spectrum of people silenced by social media platforms that inconsistently and erroneously apply terms of service rules," unquote. Canada's digital charter exacerbates this problem and interferes with the healthy reconciliation already underway in civil society between open access and safety protections. Be proactive. For those of us who cherish free speech, the good news is that principled people are resisting censorship and initiating new platforms all the time. That means 1, censors are playing whack-a-mole to keep them down, and 2, you have options. Chapter 14, Crowdfunding Democratizes Finance, addresses this topic. However, 2 important platforms to go to are Gab for open debate and GiveSendGo for donations. Both have already shown courage and resisted attempts at intimidation. Gab, for example, declined to comply with a takedown request from the New Zealand government regarding a documentary about the Christchurch shootings. Similarly, GiveSendGo is hosting a fundraising campaign to assist a British nationalist and his family after he was found guilty of so-called speech crimes.